Welcome to the New England Endurance Podcast, where we celebrate the vibrant endurance community of New England. I am your host, Eric Schenker, joined by my esteemed fellow amateur podcaster, Art Tripotsis.
Greetings, Eric. How are you?
Greetings. I'm good. Art, can you believe it? This is our 25th episode. Like, what do you think about that? So,
I think
it's pretty cool. Yeah, I can't believe it either, actually.
They say that like 98% of podcasts don't get past episode 10, so we're in the 2 percentile.
We're 200% better than that. So 250% better than that. No, this is great. But you know what's shocking? That this is our 25th episode, and you know what we have not talked about yet?
What?
Cross-country skiing. And that's a shame. Now, in fairness, we've only been recording in sort of the warmer weather months, but as it, ironically, it's a balmy 70-something degrees now, but it's time to start thinking about skiing. And cross-country skiing is perhaps my favorite sport of them all. It's really actually one of my entry points into the endurance community. So I'm really, really thrilled to be talking and focusing on cross-country skiing here, because I would say it's just another reason why New England is one of the greatest endurance regions of the world. And it's from some really world-class cross-country skiing that we have here.
That's right, Eric. And today we're talking with two incredible leaders in the New England endurance space from the New England Nordic Ski Association, otherwise known as NENSA.
NENSA,
whose
like
mission,
NEMBA, but NENSA.
NENSA. Listen to their mission statement. I'm a huge fan of like a good company's mission statement. Their mission is to share the joy of gliding on snow through educational, recreational, introductory, and competitive programs to nurture and sustain an active cross-country ski community for all ages and levels throughout the East.
I'm going to close my eyes. Say gliding on snow again. I'm just going to imagine it happen.
To share the joy of gliding on snow.
I love it. I love it. This is so good. I'm getting fired up for winter. All right, first let me introduce Isabel Caldwell. Isabel is the community development director at NENSA. Her roots run deep in the New England ski community. Growing up in southern Vermont, she developed a love of sport that led her to Dartmouth College, where she studied earth science and was a varsity member and captain of the cross-country ski team. She went on to earn a master's degree in teaching at UVM. She's now the community development director at NENSA, where she's focused on creating intersectional programming and new on-ramps into the sport of cross-country skiing. That is a mouthful, but I like all of the alliteration. Welcome, Isabel, to the New England Endurance Podcast.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, great to have you.
We're also joined by Ben Theyerl. Ben is the competitive program director of NENSA. He was born and raised by a family of Nordic skiers from Wisconsin.
It sounds like he was like a feral, like in the wilderness, raised by Nordic skiers.
He was introduced to New England skiing by one of my favorite colleges called Colby College. Shout out to Colby alumni. And after coaching and writing about skiing in Crested Butte, Colorado for many years, he came back to the East Coast to take his present role at NENSA.
Common sense. I like it.
Welcome, Ben.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Oh, yeah, it's great. All right, let's get some baseline knowledge going here, because Isabel, I'm gonna direct this one to you. Classic or skate? What's the difference? Do you have a preference?
Oh, my preference is classic all the way. But the difference is most of you have skied before will have seen these two little parallel tracks along the side of many ski trails, and those are for classic skiing. So classic skiing, you actually have like sticky stuff underneath your feet, which allows you to just move your skis parallel to each other, because you have to be able to like kick them and grip the snow.
Yeah, it's got the wax.
Skating, which is the sticky wax.
The sticky wax, yeah.
Whereas skating is more just like ice skating, and the whole ski is just glide wax, much like an alpine ski, where you don't need anything sticky there. You're just kind of pushing back and forth.
What would you suggest? Somebody's never cross country skied before or Nordic skied before. So it's kind of interchangeable words. What
Mhm.
would you suggest for a first time ski experience if they were to do classic or they were to do skate?
That's a good. So it varies a lot. I would say any kids who are learning pretty much always start with classic. Um, and then I think that adults coming into it oftentimes prefer starting with skating. Um, I think skating as an adult is just if you're starting as a child, classic just kind of gives you all the fundamentals needed. But starting as an adult, especially coming from an endurance background, I think people really like starting with skating because it's easier to just like start going. And with
Yeah.
with classic starting as an adult, if you're already really fit, there are so many technical components that you have to master in order to like really start cruising on the trails. Whereas skating, it's a little easier to feel like you're out there and like going fast and getting a good workout without maybe having like all the technique mastered.
It's kind of like swimming, right? Like you can be in awesome shape, but if you go out and try to muscle classic skiing,
Hmm.
you're gonna go
It's ugly.
backwards. It's ugly. It
Yeah.
doesn't look good. It doesn't feel good, and you'll try to return the skis that you just bought or rented. So yeah,
Correct.
I
Yes.
think that's a good. I like that, Isabel. I think you covered it. You covered it well.
Yeah, so I definitely started as a Nordic skier that came over from cycling, but I've been cross country skiing for a bunch of years, probably dating back to 1999. We'd go to Waterville Valley. I've never heard of the New England Nordic Ski Association, but after doing some research for this podcast, I'm discovering that they're intertwined with all of my favorite places to go.
Hmm.
And it's really cool. And Ben, I'm going to direct this at you. Can you tell us about NENSA at a high level and why this organization is so important to the New England ski community?
Yeah, I would say, like I've kind of been across the country when it comes to the ski community, and New England is the only place that has an NENSA. And what that means to us here is that it's the only region that really took it upon itself to say, we are one ski community here, from the Berkshire Hills in Western Massachusetts all the way up to Aroostook County in Maine. We love skiing and we love that shared joy of gliding on snow together. And what I think has been really cool with NENSA is over the course of 30 years, that sort of shared love and that shared sense of it being a regional community has guided a lot of thought from a lot of critical thinkers, which New England has just a ton of. I think that's like the best part of our community is that we have like people who are all super smart, super educated, thinking super hard about cross country skiing. And so it extends to not only thinking about how we get people on skis, but how we develop our skiers into being internationally competitive racers, and into how we like keep people once they find that joy of cross country skiing, doing it in whatever form they want to do. I think the really special thing about NENSA is that we are thinking in terms always of how could anybody come to this sport, and how could they find joy in skiing, and how do we foster that love, not the love that we have, but that love, because it adds to our community, and creates this really unique community called NENSA, which we kind of gladly wear with pride. That I think when we're out in the community, people refer to us by our acronym, and everybody knows what that means.
So with NENSA, just looking at your website and doing the research I mentioned, you guys promote Nordic skiing across all levels. So how do you balance supporting, the competitive athletes of the world with fostering with those that want to start fostering a love for Nordic skiing, i.e. the beginners and the younger kids? How do you find that balance?
Yeah, I would say that there's sort of two relationships that people have when they come to the sport. They have the relationship with that just pure like feeling of being on skis, and all that goes into that. When Izzy's talking about the like, what do you like, classic or skate skiing? It's like well, if you ask anybody from a very early time in the sport, they have an opinion on that, and they can tell you it's because, oh, I like the feeling when I'm on my skate skis and I'm balanced on one ski, and I could go to the ends of the earth that way on snow, versus classic skiing. Like I always say, it's like appreciating like classical music. You have to like kind of understand the technique to really understand it. And then the other relationship that we're always trying to foster on the competitive side of things is that love of competition, and what a individual gets out of pushing themselves alongside others in a community. And I think the way that we've taken an approach to athlete development is that we try to foster both of those things from a young age. And we're very carefully thoughtful towards when is it appropriate to put sort of the gas down on one of those relationships. You know, we start off with kids and the focus is totally on fun. And then we gradually introduce competition over the years. And that goes from our Bill Koch League up to our Eastern Cup, which is our premier junior racing circuit, and then into the colleges that really form a unique ski circuit out here on the EISA.
That makes a lot of sense. And we hear that theme a little bit more and more now as we with some of the bike programs and youth programs where they've been making it certainly a focus on making it more fun. I did the opposite raising my children, where I took them out cross country skiing. I made it extremely hard and unfun. Tried to, and I do not have any children who continued to Nordic ski with me. And my wife, who, for the few times we did, said, Eric, you got to bring hot chocolate. You got to bring cinnamon buns. There has to be a reward. And I just did it completely wrong. And I wish I would have put them in a NENSA program to share my love. But that's my own burden too. That's my own burden to live with. So I like what you're saying about making it fun and easing them into the competitiveness. Isabel, you mentioned a lot about community in the NENSA world. Like, can you talk a little bit about the role community plays in general in Nordic skiing, and how does NENSA build camaraderie amongst those skiers?
Yeah, so one of our main roles at NENSA is club development and helping clubs get off the ground and then helping them grow. And the one of the most amazing things in New England that's really unique to New England, like other regions throughout the country try to have something similar, but it's just not the same. It's so in New England we have this Bill Koch Youth Ski League, named after Bill Koch, who won a silver medal and lives just up the road from me here. But he the league is all for K through 8 skiers, and it's not associated with schools. So it's like the league that I grew up in here at West River Nordic is most of us were from one school, but it really pulls in kids from an area, and then we're going to practices together, right? And I think we had practices like 1 to 3 days a week in the winter time, and they're just fun. You're going there with your friends. You're playing games. Sometimes you're going on longer skis, but the whole thing is just like, I just have so many core memories as a kid of just like skiing along in my classic tracks and my buddy right next to me, and because we had double set classic tracks on the ski area where I grew up here, and you just chit chat through the woods the whole practice, chatting with your best pals, and it takes a sport that could be super intimidating and just turns it into like the most social, fun thing you could do in the winter.
I mean, how many clubs are there associated with BKL in New England, let's say?
That's a great question. I think we have
dozens.
More. Over 50.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So so the beautiful thing about this, right? You're just training with your one little club all winter, and throughout the winter you're having like little local races with so I was part of the West River Ski Club in Peru, Vermont, and then we would race with the club in Putney and the club in Bennington, like both an hour away, and we'd have like 4 or 5 little races with them throughout winter. And then at the end of the season, every club in New England goes to the Bill Koch Youth Festival, which we rotated around between the 4 different New England states, or 5 different New England states, so that it's in everyone else's backyard every few years. But you go to this festival at the end of the season, and we have 700 kids showing up to it. So it
Wow.
takes this sport that feels pretty small, where you're just kind of in the woods doing it with your buddies all winter long, and then you go to this end of season event, and suddenly you see how big the New England community really is.
So what's the relationship between Bill Koch Ski League and NENSA? Are you sort of teaching these clubs how to get off the ground with the Bill Koch name?
Yeah, so we like run the festival at the end of the season. So I would say that NENSA, like, I think actually the Bill Koch League started first before NENSA began, but now they're really intertwined into one, where we will we'll help clubs get off the ground by like giving them if they are a NENSA club, they can have insurance through us, which is
Got
a
it.
huge asset for a club that's getting off the ground. We'll give them we have all sorts of different like club development and coaches education.
You give them the
Toolbox.
playbook.
Like a playbook or a
Yeah.
toolbox.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. And then we have like a whole BKL like coaches manual and stuff, just so that any like eager parents who are looking to start a club have those resources. Just trying to pull down barriers.
Could I start an adult club? Is there a different organization?
You want to be part of one too. Well, the beauty of it is that many of these clubs have master's programs too. So you could join one.
And and the kind of cool thing I think that we always like foreground, you're talking to like 2 people who were generations into the sport at this point, is that club development always happens on a multi-generational level. And sometimes it's the kids leading the parents, and sometimes it's the parents leading the kids. Like I grew up in a ski community where there were masters doing the American Birkebeiner in Hayward, Wisconsin every year. And then we had a youth program kind of in, whereas Isabel kind of comes from a community where it was very focused on youth first. And then now there's masters that come from that part of New England, which is really awesome.
So because we're recording the podcast in Arlington, Mass, at least I am, and we have a lot of listeners from there, there's a couple of local ski areas, and I'm just curious if they have masters clubs. We have Great Brook Farm, we have the Weston Ski Track. Can you speak, like, do they have adult or masters ski clubs?
Yeah, the Weston Ski Track is the center of the universe in Boston skiing.
Okay.
And there's a club called CSU, right? So CSU, Cambridge Sports Union, a former member. I am no longer a card-carrying member, but it was a former member of CSU. And those are some, I will risk offending them, but there are some really fast old dudes on that, on the CSU program. So is what I would say.
And that CSU is connected to the youth side of that program is Eastern Mass Cross Country, which has been a very fast growing club here in New England the past couple of years. A couple years ago, at Junior Nationals, they were the highest performing club in the nation too. So you think like we're skiing across with kids from Alaska to Maine, right? And it's the kids from Boston that were putting it together.
I love it. And so on that note, who are the big superstars that have come out of the BKL here in New England, or any memorable ones? I imagine everybody from New England was in BKL, but who's the rock stars?
It's kind of the cool thing. There was just a really cool article that came out from, I'll give a shout out to Nordic Insights and our guy Gavin up there, who he analyzed where are U.S. ski team members coming from across the country. And there were 2 states that stood out, Alaska and Vermont. And we took a lot of pride in that. And then I also asked, like, why is it? And I think Vermont and New England broadly is one of the only places where kids can develop from that. They can develop and be supported from the time they're in that Bill Koch Youth Ski League all the way through to when they're professionals. with a couple of really great professional programs that we have here in New England, Stratton Mountain School and Craftsbury Green Project. Some of the like really, really big names that we like to tout out here. Andy Newell, who's from Bennington, Isabel Caldwell and her sister, Sophie Caldwell, who grew up as part of the Caldwell family. And then we've mentioned his name a lot, but Bill Koch, who was prior to Jesse Diggins, who's the current World Cup champion, and also skis for Stratton, lives in Vermont. I'll claim she's from Minnesota, so my Midwesterner will take some pride.
We'll claim her.
but they've also, Bill Koch was prior to Jesse and Keegan Randall, the only American Olympic medalist in cross country skiing back in the 70s. And when you start the podcast asking classic or skate, it just reminded me that Bill Koch invented skate skiing, and that's
really?
We can have some pride in that.
Wow.
If you want to look at where that distinction came, right? It came from those early March days where it's super icy and it's not easy to get kick on your classic skis. And what's the intuitive thing to do? You start to skate over.
I
the
wonder
stuff
if you started with like a V2.
I think start with a marathon skate, one ski in the track and one pushing.
That's amazing. I did not know that. That is like such a awesome gem to find out.
Can we talk about the Women's Ski Day for a second? So there's something called the Women's Cross Country Ski Day. It sounds like an amazing initiative. Isabel, where and when does this take place, and what can folks expect from that day?
So this is in Woodstock, Vermont this year, and it is on January 26th. We're going to be opening registration for it fairly soon, and it does fill up pretty quickly. But so it is, we cap it at 200 participants every year, and every year it fills right up. But it's a day of, we have so many women in New England who are passionate about skiing and want to share that knowledge and share the sport with other women. So it's really a day run by women for women. So we have probably about 20 like Women's Day instructors who come out for the day, and it's ski clinics for anyone participating, and then like a little ski tour, and then we'll have like a sponsorship expo there, and then different like inspirational talks by a few different women in the community. And it's just a day of it's a really fun combination of like learning how to ski and socializing and meeting new people in the community.
That sounds amazing. Have you been involved with that for many years? I'm just curious how it's evolved over the years.
Personally, I have not, because I'm new with NENSA starting this past summer. But Women's Day, I think, has been going on for do you know exactly, Ben? I think like 20 years or so.
Yeah, it's nearly as old as NENSA will be turning 30 next year, and it's nearly as old as our organization, and was founded by some of the coaches that still are coming to this, or some of our former Olympic skiers from New England. And I think it's been wholly like blown us out of the water of how successful it's been. We're looking at opening registration for that next week, and we're already doing game planning on our side to say, okay, like how do we man the wait list? Because
yeah, I can imagine you must have a long wait list for that. But that's really, I wanted to mention that in the podcast, because when I read about it, I'm like, wow, that sounds really cool. So
yeah, it's a great event.
Yeah.
And I think we hear about that a lot in the endurance sports communities, right? It's no different than in the running or in cycling, that that those sort of women-only events are going to be, I don't want to say more welcoming. I think a lot of the events are welcoming, but maybe a place that somebody can feel comfortable to go and try something new or learn something new in that kind of environment. So I think that's an awesome event. And you guys have a lot of great things going on. You recently won a Share Winter Foundation grant. So that's congrats. Can you tell us, I think that money is going to start or hopefully being applied to the Nordic Rocks program. Can you talk about Nordic Rocks and how will that grant impact that program?
Yeah, so Nordic Rocks is this incredible program we have that it's just with the goal of getting kids on skis. So we have a fleet of skis that have a couple of they were on the ski team with me at Dartmouth, but they are up in Craftsbury now, Nils and Ethan, and they were engineering students, and they've come up with this binding system that's like super durable and can just go around a snow boot. So we have
Cool.
like hundreds of these skis, and we deploy them out to different elementary schools throughout New England, and we give them to the PE teacher, like along with a Nordic skiing curriculum, so that kids can be getting out on skis throughout the winter and actually like going out a few different times so they really learn how to ski. And I think last year we had the skis out in like over 40 schools and got
Wow.
5,000 kids on skis.
That's
Um,
unbelievable.
yeah.
That's,
And then when we're always thinking about like how can we make it so the Nordic Rocks, like kids can go from Nordic Rocks to the next thing instead of just like trying it once at PE and then never seeing them again. So we always try to think about like how can we like kind of attach our Nordic Rocks program to like a BKL club so that kids who like get really into Nordic skiing through Nordic Rocks like have a place to go next.
this is Art, this is the second time now that we've heard sports being integrated into school curriculum, right?
Yes.
So we had it with rowing and we had it with Nordic skiing. Interestingly enough, they do say the best athletes in the world are rowers and Nordic skiers. So it's sort of funny that those two are doing it. But they are like, let's say they're not the normal team sports. So the rowers and the Nordic skiers kind of have to work maybe a little bit harder to get new kids into the sport. That's an absolutely unbelievable program that I'm hearing about. I'm affiliated with an organization up here called North Shore Nordic, where we do free groomed cross-country skiing at this wonderful property called Appleton Farms. But we've often been talking about how are we going to get new kids to come and ski. You kind of have to have, we don't rent skis or anything like that. You kind of have to have skis and you got to come out and ski. But this seems like a program that maybe we could reach out to. And when the snow comes, we can say, hey, there's going to be a Nordic Rocks event. You don't need to bring anything other than your snow boots, and we can help some kids get on skis. Is that, am I thinking correctly?
Yeah. I mean, just always, if you have questions like that, just reach out to us and we'll see what we can do for you.
That's unbelievable. So
Isabel, when you say all over New England, I mean, are you coming down to Boston? Are you going to Maine? Like, or are you just in Vermont and New Hampshire? This program?
No, like all of New England, yeah.
Not Connecticut though, right? Not
Connecticut. Yeah, I guess Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine.
Well, we're sort of trying to trade Alaska for Connecticut in general. So it's like you don't need to go to Connecticut. There's nothing there for you.
It's an inside joke.
It's an inside joke that we've thoroughly beat into the ground every podcast.
Hey, if there's a Connecticut person out there that wants to get kids on skis, we can bring the skis, but you got to bring the snow. I think that's
Well, we don't want to get into roller ski conversation now either. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about that another day. So, and if anybody needs to buy a couple pairs of roller skis, I can help you out because I don't use mine anymore. So.
There we go.
Are there any particular schools, Isabel, that you can think of that are involved with the Nordic program that are sort of success stories around this Nordic Rocks?
Well, so I know it was actually, and this is one of the skiers Ben mentioned, Andy Newell, who grew up in Shaftesbury, Vermont. He's the one who actually had the idea to start Nordic Rocks. And so he was an Olympic skier who just wanted to get more kids on skis. So I think at least one of the first schools to be a Nordic Rocks school was his elementary school in Shaftesbury. And what's cool in that region, there are a few different Nordic Rocks schools there in Southwest Vermont, and they've actually figured out a way to have the kids are skiing at PE, but then they have actually like developed after school busing to like get them up to the Nordic Center so that the kids who like really like it in PE
That's awesome.
can do it after school as well. And like, instead of just being in the schoolyard, they can go out on ski trails and such.
Yeah.
That's so great. All right, so we've talked a lot about kids, right? But let's talk about adults. NENSA caters to skiers at all levels, from total beginners to seasoned masters, like the self-proclaimed Art, who says he's a great Nordic skier. I have yet to see it. But if somebody was new to the scene, what's a type of event you'd recommend them starting with?
I would say, like in my mind, I'd say go to a race. And I know that sounds like intimidating up front. But I always say that racing is so much more than it's for so much more than just the person that's in first place. And so much of what popular Nordic skiing is, where you're just hopping in as a citizen and doing it, is not about the result sheet. It's about the people that you're going to meet at the aid stations and the people that you're going to go out on a ski after the race with because you can't stop, kind of thing. And we've been or are developing very thoughtfully, I think, ways to kind of to signal to people, this is the event that you might want to try and whatnot. So if you go to our popular racing webpage, we have what we call the Zach Cup, which is the very serious racers out there that are in their Lycra, and they are week in, week out pushing it pretty hard. But we also have events that are designated in literally the community section of that calendar, and that encompasses a whole lot of things. It's the Stratton Train Challenge, where they're putting hay bales out there and building jumps in the woods for kids and adults to go off alike. And it's the Stowe Derby, which is the oldest ski race in New England, where you start at the top of Mount Mansfield, make your way down on your skinny skis, and then ski into town. And so I think the cool part about popular racing in New England under the banner of NENSA is that we really try to celebrate the singularity of a lot of these different ski racing traditions. And I would say that because of that and the diversity that there is in those events, the best way to get involved is to just go try one. And it might not be the first one that really clicks with you, but it might be the second or third one. And once it does, you're going to have some direction in where you want to go in the sport.
Are these races listed on the NENSA.net website?
Yeah, they will be. They just we sent our season poster to the printers today. So they look for an announcement in the next couple of weeks. And then the best place to know what's going on in the NENSA community is to go to our calendar page, which will be starting to be populated by a whole lot of events here in the next couple of weeks.
So I'm a glutton for punishment, and I want to know if you could tell me about the NENSA Marathon Series. Like, where are these races happening? What are the distances? What are the categories?
You can't handle this art. This is the real deal.
Still love to hear about it.
Marathon racing is I think it's the best racing you can. Nordic skiing is uniquely a sport where if your race isn't going well, at least you can look around and go, I'm in the woods and I'm going to be out here for a long time, but gosh, I'm lucky to be doing that. And I think the best place for that is to look at our marathon series. We have some really cool ones. The Craftsbury Marathon's a highlight every year in New England.
You described my memories of Craftsbury Marathon.
Yep.
This is not going well. But man, this might be the most beautiful hill with a red barn and a vista that I've ever seen. I am really cold and really tired, but it is beautiful. And I was all by myself in a marathon, which is not good when you don't see anybody else around you. But Ben, I think that was a very, very good capture of the field.
What's the distance of a cross-country ski marathon typically?
Yeah, I think that's unique kind of to the running world, right? That's a very set distance in running, and in skiing, it's anywhere from 25K to 50K to 90K, depending on the race. I don't know if we have too many 90K marathons in New England. That's it's more of a Midwesterner thing. They like to really beat themselves up, but they have less hills, right? So
I've done the Vasaloppet a couple
Yep.
times, which is a 90K classic race art in Sweden.
Nice.
So that's
Bucket list.
That's a long day. That would be a
That's
good
on
one.
my bucket list.
Mass start also, just to be clear, it's a mass start with 15,000 people. So there you go. So
How many times did you fall over?
I mean, that's not important. That's not really important. So
That's just gotta be a mess out there with 15,000 people.
Let's get back to art.
Which one of these marathon races is a must do, can't miss it?
I'd go back to that Craftsbury one. Is kind of the popular shout out at Craftsbury Outdoor Center, which is one of the premier venues in New England. And then sort of my hidden gem pick would be the Rangeley Loppet, which is up in Rangeley, Maine, at the base of Saddleback Mountain. And that happens first weekend of March every year, and is just such a fun course. It kind of winds its way up the valley, and you get a beautiful view of Saddleback and that range of mountains, and then you're back into the woods for a while.
So let's stay on that. I mean, we talked about Craftsbury, which I think a lot of people will actually know certainly from our podcast and maybe from the rowing community as well. And we've talked about Rangeley. Where are some other just absolutely amazing places to ski in New England? I'm going to give a huge shout out to Jackson, New Hampshire. I am wildly biased to Jackson. So shout out to Jackson XC. You'll find me on the wave most weekends. But where else should people be looking to make a weekend of it and head up and go cross country skiing?
Isabel, you want to take that first?
Yeah, I'm just I'm very biased to right where I grew up skiing, which is Wild Wings Cross Country Center in Peru, Vermont. It's just when I was growing up, it was classic only, and just like little narrow winding trails through the woods. And they have a couple trails now that they've widened and turned to skate, but it's just an amazing spot. But there are quite a few places in southern Vermont that are fairly close to Boston area, and like outside of Bennington is Prospect Mountain ski area, and then there's also Marlborough down in southern Vermont, and then I'm thinking of other places like with closer proximity to Boston area, like Dublin School and Holderness School both have great ski trail systems, right on their campuses.
We're going to put these in the podcast notes, so this is good stuff. What were you going to say, Ben?
Oh, I was just going to, I'll shout out the other side of New England quick too. I think up in Maine, Quarry Road, which is in Waterville, is super high quality trails and just really awesome folks. I'm a little biased there because my uncle runs the place. Then I also would say a couple of like the historic places that we go to, Reichert Nordic Center, which is on the campus of Bread Loaf at Middlebury, is such a quintessential New England spot for me. And then Trapp's Family Lodge up in Stowe,
that's a great
oldest cross country ski area in the country, and is just a treat every time you go there, with the trails, and then also just it feels like you're in Switzerland. So,
but let's stay on this theme for a second, a little bit longer. So, you mentioned some great places to ski. I'm definitely going to look those up. Is there an event? Doesn't have to be marathon, but just is there a particular ski event, cross country ski event in New England that each of you would recommend is a must-do bucket list? We got to do it. It could be a paintball biathlon. It could be something else. Anything?
Can I have two?
Yes.
So I'm thinking of two. The first one is that paintball biathlon.
Okay.
So that's in Gunstock, New Hampshire, and it is a race. It is a race, but it throws in that fun format of the paintball. So if you're gonna like try a first race, that's a really fun way to kind of take the pressure off the skiing.
Do you have to bring your own paintball gun?
No. They have it all. Yep.
We should do this.
You have a paintball gun, Art? You said that as if like you own a paintball gun. Now I'm sort of interested if you actually own one.
I do not.
Okay. Feel better.
What's the other one, Isabel?
So the other one is was new last year, so this will be the second year we're doing it. But it's the Tour de Stowe, and which is not a race. Bring your whole family. It's just a like a ski through the woods at beautiful Trapp Family Lodge. They have feed stations out on the trail with blueberry soup, and at the end of the event, everyone goes to the beer hall to enjoy a glass of beer and some German style pretzels.
Wow.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah.
I like both of those events. Those sound
Would
those
both
sound
of those
great.
events make your calendar? Just curious.
Yeah.
The NENSA calendar.
Hmm.
Okay, great.
They'll be there. So
All right.
We'll be there.
What about
Speaking
Ben? Sorry.
Okay, yeah,
I
sorry. Go
was
ahead, man.
I was just gonna, and this is a bit more of a specific shout out, but really, if you're a parent out there, or if you're a kid listening to this podcast for some reason, like the most New England of NENSA's events is the Bill Koch Festival. It's the one that really, I think, us who are from outside of the region are jealous of. And when I talked to, I was talking to one of my friends from college, and when I started here, and they were like, "That's really what I think of when I think of New England skiing." Is just the joy that you see when you have 700 kids out there skiing alongside their parents and enjoying each other's company.
That's great. Yeah, that's good. Good shout outs. But other things on the calendar, I've been there many times, and I've actually know some folks from NENSA that have been there. But the snowboard expo that happens in Boston, I know you guys have been there in the past and got some kids on roller skis and tried to introduce some kids and maybe adults to cross country skiing. Are you guys going to be back at the Snowboard Expo?
Snowbound, I think, right?
Sorry, Snowbound Expo in Boston. And what do you hope to accomplish there?
I think we might be on hold this year for that. I think we're actually looking to do a different event that weekend with some kids up in Vermont, unfortunately. But I think we do a lot of that kind of clinic style programming in the off season. You mentioned roller skiing, which can be kind of dangerous and can be kind of, I think, intimidating to folks. But the best way to get people stoked about skiing in the off season is to get them comfortable on roller skis. And so we do a lot of that kind of programming coming up here. We're putting a race up on Mount Greylock this Sunday. That's going to have over 100 folks at it. That's just a hill climb on roller skis. So
sounds fun.
Yeah.
So Ben and Isabel, is there anything as we wind down this episode of the New England Endurance Podcast you'd like to mention or plug to our millions of listeners?
Yeah, I would just say that I feel like a lot of people have this stereotype of Nordic skiing that it's like the boring sport where people just walk around in the woods. And people don't realize that Nordic skiing is possibly the most thrilling sport you could ever try.
Agreed.
It's just that feeling of it's just this skinny little ski under your foot, and you might think you're super fit, and you might come in with a big ego, and then you put on these little Nordic skis, and it's gonna bring you down a notch, but it's also going to want you getting out there and doing more, because it's just so much fun.
Yeah, I think on my side of things, I think the really cool part about Nordic skiing is that like some of our best athletes are based here in New England. You would never know it, right? It's some of the fittest people on earth, and they kind of just are out there among us in the woods and in the mountains training all the time. But where you can see them and see how, I think, just beautiful Nordic skiing is at some of our big events that we hold throughout the winter. Any of the Eastern Cup races that we put on, which will have, inevitably at the top of that field, there's kids that will be in the Olympics one day, or there might be an Olympian. We had Ben Ogden at one of those last year there. And then also like the EISA carnival circuit, which exists in New England and is a very unique part of the culture here, which brings in, some of the best athletes in the country, U.S. ski team members who are going to school at the moment. And so on any given weekend in January and February, you can go out and see, the kids that'll be in Italy for us in 2026 racing here in your backyard, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
I'll actually add to that, Ben. I think that's a good point. If you can catch a collegiate ski race in New England, it's worth going going to see, because you may think, Art, you're skiing fast, and you will see these kids come by at a ridiculous speed that doesn't make any sense in terms of how fast they're turning or how fast they switch and start climbing. And we have, it's a kind of a unique opportunity, right? Like you could go to Jackson for the weekend. There could be a ski race. You could ski in the morning, and those kids are flying around, and it's pretty inspiring. And you're absolutely right, Ben. A lot of those kids that are going to be racing in New England are the best in the world. I mean, we got kids from all over the world coming to ski at colleges in New England.
Yeah, so, we call them winter carnivals for a reason, right? They're super. They're more than just a ski race. So
yeah. All right, this is our final question. I'm going to start with you, Ben, because you were raised by a pack of wild Nordic skiers in the wilderness of Wisconsin. We've covered a lot today. I hope we've inspired a lot of folks to get out on some skinny skis. But Ben, why do you agree that New England is the greatest endurance region of the United States, if not the world?
Well, I'll start off with a sorry to my mom and dad back at home. I gotta speak to New England here, but I think what really captures it about the ski community to me is I think about the places I've like engaged with Nordic skiing in New England, and it's at the top of mountains and it's out on islands like off the coast of Maine. You know, some of that's roller skiing, some of that's being at the precipice of dropping in on Tuckerman's Ravine, and like I think to me the really unique part of New England is just there's no other place in the country where you get that much diversity in the ecosystems and in the people and the traditions, all under the shared camaraderie of one ski community. So that's what I come back to when I think of why I'm out here.
Isabel, how about you? Tell us why you agree.
I think I feel like any adventure you could imagine and want to go out there and do, you're so close to that in New England. It's just proximity to anything you could imagine. And maybe the mountains aren't as big as some other places in the country, but they're still darn big mountains. And the ski trails, I think the Nordic trails in New England are the most fun of anywhere in the country. Just on these rolling hills in the woods, and just thrilling again. Just these sharp little turns and ups and downs that you don't necessarily get in other places in the country.
And Ben, you said something earlier, and that was the first time I'd heard it on this podcast, but you also talked about New Englanders as critical thinkers. And I thought that was just something that stuck to me. So I'm going to add that to our little list of why New England, and that we have some great critical thinkers. So
we're very
awesome.
Yeah.
Great answers, guys. Isabel and Ben, thank you so much for being on the New England Endurance Podcast, episode 25, and sharing your story with us. It was awesome to learn about NENSA. We're going to direct folks to visit nensa.net. Also follow them on Instagram. We will tag you folks on our New England Endurance Podcast Instagram page.
And a big thank you to our sponsors who power this podcast, starting with Lark Fine Foods, a 100% women-owned specialty food company baking delicious small batch cookies. I generally have a story about Cookie Bob, the head baker, chief operating officer. He was inspired by me being Nordic skier, and his first Nordic ski race was the Jackson Marathon. And we did classic, and he got the wax wrong. And it was horrible long day. He overdressed, number one, because that's a big mistake that they always make. He overdressed, and he got the kick wax wrong. And it was he will never do another Nordic ski race again. So avoid that. Avoid what Cookie Bob did. Of course, The Everyday Athlete, a book about balancing work, family, and fitness, written by my co-host, amateur podcaster. And Kinetic, experience the brain-boosting benefits of ketones on demand at drinkkinetic.com. Here's a can of Kinetic right here that I'm drinking. And until next time, get out there, rain or shine, explore the beautiful terrain, water, and ski trails of New England.